Hey guys, how are all of you beautiful people? Hope all of you are doing great. And yes, this is the next part of my Pokemon world. We're the story following the birth of the strongest trainer to ever walk the planet. Going region by region, league by league, champion by champion in order to chase after his ever-fleeting sense of accomplishment. Fans scream out his name every time he enters the arena, opponents forfeit when they meet his gaze, his combat style, unforgiving to even the smallest of mistakes. Soaring above the sky itself, his figure fades from the eyes of all those who he has defeated, never to catch up. So let's start without any delay. Walking out of the elevator, Rex saw the three girls sitting on the couch sipping on some beverages. "Ladies, how was your night?" he asked with a smile as he sat down opposite them. Their conversation was halted at the sound of Rex's question. The twins nodded with smiles on their faces. "Good, we are full of energy again. Thank you for taking us shopping yesterday," they said with big smiles. Rex couldn't help but smile warmly at their words. He then saw Elisa nodding off to the side, clearly satisfied with their words. It seems they were reminded to say thank you. He didn't mind it since kids usually forget pleasantries anyway. He knew that they liked it and that was all that mattered. "Thank you for the good day yesterday, Rex. How did you sleep?" she asked as she sipped on what appeared to be tea. "Good, well rested and ready for my final battle," he responded casually as he leaned back on the couch and ordered a tea for himself. They spent the next 15 minutes chatting about the weather and current events. Once they finished eating their breakfast, they walked out of the hotel and headed in the direction of the gym. "Hey Rex, do you think you can win?" asked Monica with wide eyes full of curiosity. Rex patted her head softly. "Of course I'll win," he said confidently. Monica pondered over his answer and looked at him again. "Please don't underestimate your opponent. I don't have a clue how strong they are, but if they stand between being able to enter the league or not, they can't be weak by any means," she said seriously. Jessica nodded at her words. Elisa and Rex were stunned as they stared at her. "What a thoughtful girl. She has a good head on her shoulders, she'll get very far." Gaia chimed in. Rex had to agree with that statement. She was right, it was not good to underestimate one's opponent. But he was an exception, losing wasn't really a possibility anymore. But it was still something he could apply in a battle that looms ahead. So, he, therefore, nodded. "Thank you, Monica, your words are very accurate. But if I don't have confidence in my own strength, I have already lost half the battle," he said with a smile. Jessica nodded at his words. "That is also correct. Both of you make good points," she said while skipping ahead. Monica stopped caring soon after and continued to look around for anything that interested her. Rex leaned over towards Elisa. "You have some talented sisters. You might find it difficult to keep your position as champion in the future," he said teasingly. Elisa was stunned by his words and looked over at him. "Why do you have more confidence that I'll make it than me?" she asked. "Why wouldn't I? You are a talented trainer, very strong Pokemon and a goal that motivated you to go higher. What else do you need?" he asked casually. Elisa thought about his words and nodded eventually. He was right. Just like that, they spent 30 minutes walking around the city taking detours to some tourist places even Rex hadn't visited due to his short stay. Eventually, they came upon the gym. At the entrance, two Team Rocket grunts were standing guard. They frowned instantly when they saw Rex. The one on the left picked up a phone and called someone. Elisa frowned at this and looked over at Rex questioningly. They seem to know you, she commented. Rex didn't hide anything. They sure do, I'm the bane of their very existence, he said with a chuckle. Elisa shook her head and sighed. I pity the poor souls then, she said with clearly faked sadness, a small smile tugged at her lips. Rex laughed at her words and nodded slightly. But unbeknownst to her, a trace of viciousness flashed through his eyes as the shadow beneath his feet churned slightly. Rex stepped ahead of the twins and faced the two grunts. Evening, gentlemen, I assume Giovanni is waiting for me already, he asked casually. The grunts frowned even heavier before grins appeared on their faces. Our boss is indeed waiting, Rex. And we have the pleasure of getting to see your stupid ass getting kick. Bang! A punch smashed into his stomach, making him drop to his knees. Rex crouched down and grabbed him by the hair and raised his head. There are children present. Watch your mouth. Now move aside, he warned before throwing him aside like trash. The twins were not only not deterred by Rex's actions, but they secretly thought he was cool. They looked at each other and then at Elisa before giving her another thumbs up. Elisa could only smile helplessly at their antics. Rex turned to them, oblivious to their previous actions, sorry about their pig-like mouths. After you ladies, he said, holding the door open. He was a gentleman after all. The twins poked their tongues out mockingly at the grunt on the floor before giggling and skipping inside happily. Elisa didn't even spare them a glance and walked in. Rex grinned, and as soon as he made sure the girls couldn't see, he kicked the grunt in the jaw before walking in. A big smile on his face. By the time the gym door closed, they had already vanished from sight as a wisp of green smoke was left behind. I'm a tyrant, aren't I? He asked himself as he strolled in with his hands in his pockets. Sure, you are. You're acting like one of those young masters, ha ha. But who cares, the strong make the rules. In any case, even if this is a crime, who has evidence? And even if they do by some miracle have some and it goes to court, I can win for you with so much ease that it's just a joke. So honestly, do whatever you want. Gaia said casually. Rex laughed at those words. He had the strength to do whatever he wanted. If he was weak, he would have already disappeared at Giovanni's request. Power equaled freedom. A simple and irrefutable fact. Nobody messes with someone they cannot touch. He had method after method of making someone disappear. And an equal amount of methods to evade the justice system. He was not a good person, nor did he want to be. After all, good people end up last. Clack clack clack. The sounds of footsteps responded through the walls as Rex stepped inside the gym. Elisa and the twins could already be seen walking up the stairs to the view area. They gave him one last wave before disappearing. Rex didn't even go to the reception desk since Giovanni was already waiting for him. The sliding doors parted swiftly, revealing a dirt battlefield. There was nothing sticking out at all, it was a plain and simple battlefield. On the opposite side stood a man in a black suit. He had a white turtleneck on, his jacket had a small red R on the left breast pocket. He had short black hair and an arrogant smile commonly seen on business tycoons. This was Giovanni, the last obstacle before he could take on the Kanto League and ascended to the throne of champion. Rex, I don't think we have actually met before. But I think we both know of each other. To be honest, I thought you were dead when I sent that last Jess to kill you. To think you actually came out alive. Very impressive. You have gotten on my nerves on multiple occasions. But I don't see why we have to be enemies. After all, don't we have a common enemy? He asked with a knowing grin on his face. A flash of viciousness went through his eyes. Rex didn't show any expression on his face, but he was secretly surprised and slightly stunned at his words. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Giovanni nodded slightly. You're willing to backstab? He asked with an arched eyebrow. Giovanni smiled slightly. The question is not whether I'm willing or not, but whether I have a choice. He was planning on using you to kill me due to my incompetence in failing to kill you. He initially used me to try and get rid of you. For reasons unbeknownst to me. When I failed, he planned to use you to kill me. I had to act angry all the time, to pretend that I had no clue about anything. To be a good little puppet. You must understand, I have no real hatred for you. You did what you had to do. I don't really want to mess with someone as strong as you. Rex was again stunned, fearful. Giovanni scoffed and shook his head slowly. No, not due to fear, but because it took far too long to build everything I have today. I don't fear death in the slightest. He said truthfully. So, the mastermind behind all this intended to use us both, huh? Rex asked with a smile. Giovanni smiled as well. Cocky asshole, Rex stated casually. Giovanni laughed slightly. That he is, but he has the strength to back it up. I would be careful if I were you. He warned. Rex didn't hide his astonishment this time. Since the other party was being honest, he might as well be too. Why did you continue to bother me then? He asked with slight irritation. Giovanni smiled awkwardly. Yeah, sorry about that, I really didn't have a choice. As soon as I showed signs of insubordination, I would have been a goner. I was banking on this meeting to change the tide. He said with a shrug. Rex cupped his chin and looked at Giovanni for a moment. You know, you're not so bad after all. I thought you were some arrogant bastard with a big head who thought you could take the whole world on. It seems I judged you wrongly, and I apologize for that. He said truthfully. Giovanni waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry about it. Team Rocket turned out the opposite way I intended it to be. And I have been powerless to stop it ever since. I was hoping. Before he could finish, 2 pairs of footsteps could be heard from behind Rex. The latter instantly knew who it was. Turned around slowly, a smile on his face. Well, Giovanni, I didn't expect you to be such a good actor. Damn, you had me completely fooled. It seems I was the one being played from the beginning, said the young man. Behind him stood Machamp. He was staring at Rex intently. An oppressive aura overflowed from his body and smashed down on Rex. But the latter didn't seem to feel it. I have to say, you really are quite the coward, Rex said calmly as he observed the Machamp. The mystery man frowned slightly at Rex's response. This wasn't the reaction he was hoping for. Rex naturally picked up on it. Oh, you thought I would be scared? Ha! I might have been, but I have been aware of your existence for a very long time. You can thank Ho-Oh and Lugia for that. He said casually. The mystery man frowned even harder. Those damn birds. I knew I shouldn't have let them go. He spat. Rex nodded. Yep, a big oversight. Very unprofessional of you, isn't it? And it was that simply oversight that has cost you your victory. If it wasn't for them, you would have won. But now, you have lost it. He said seriously, a grin on his face. The mystery man didn't seem to care. What gives you such confidence, boy? He asked curiously. Rex looked at the man with a provocative look. You have no idea, man. Not even the faintest clue. But here, I'll give you a little teaser. Meteor. He said vaguely. But instantly, both Giovanni and the mystery man's faces changed color. They stared at Rex in horror. Why you did that? The man asked, trying to suppress the shock, fear and uneasiness that was welling up inside of him. Well, it was a joke between my Pokémon, sadly I went overboard. Such a waste. He said helplessly. He was using this revelation to bluff the man into hesitating while Elisa and the twins escaped. He had already told them to leave via telepathy the instant Giovanni revealed everything. He knew the mystery man would arrive. The man had a small bead of sweat forming on the side of his head. He was slightly panicked. Such power was something even he didn't have, and something he sure as hell couldn't handle. But suddenly, he regained his confidence. And a mocking look appeared on his face. You shouldn't be able to use this move regularly, right? He asked. Rex didn't panic but instead looked at the Machamp who had a knowing grin on its face. So, you aren't a musclehead after all, who knew? He said mockingly. The Machamp's grin froze instantly as killing intent seeped out of him. The mystery man laughed slightly. My oh my, I just remembered, where are my manners? This is Umbra, my best friend. And I go by the name Sinistro Spade. Hey. I like that name, man. Rex said honestly with a relaxed smile. Go on. Tell us how you came to have that name, he said with an inviting gesture. Giovanni snapped his fingers and a set of couches appeared from an opening in the floor. Ah! How convenient! Rex said with surprise and made his way to the couches. Giovanni didn't seem to mind as he had already made his bed. It was time to lay in it. Whatever happened? It was too late to change anything anymore. Spade didn't seem to mind and walked over to the couch opposite theirs and sat down. Umbra stood behind him. His gaze didn't leave Rex's figure for a moment. The latter didn't seem to feel it at all. Hey Giovanni, you don't happen to have some tea, do you? Rex asked casually as he rested his head on his left arm that was on the couch's armrest. I naturally have some. What kind of ship do you think I run here? I might be a villain, but I still have standards. He chided in a relaxed fashion. Spade's gaze went back and forth between them. Your acting is rather great. To be able to maintain such composure. He commented. Clearly not believe their little stunt. Rex arched a brow in confusion and looked at Giovanni and then back at Spade. Why you think this is an act? You have nothing to threaten me with, man. Your strength doesn't scare me. You have nothing at all that can hurt me. Rex said with heavy traces of mockery in his gaze. Spade's eyebrow twitched heavily, and Umbra shifted instantly and appeared in front of Rex and sent a punch out. Rex didn't move at all and stared at Spade with a smile. His shadow churned slightly before a flash of black light shot out directly towards Spade's neck. He didn't have time to react at all, but Umbra did. He instantly sensed immense danger and retracted his punch before flashing in front of the hit. Boom! Umbra shot back over the couch and onto the floor where he stayed for a few moments. Know your place, little puppy, Rex said calmly. Spade was stunned for a moment, a trace of cold sweat rolled down the side of his face. He was sure he just tasted death's balls. He was so close to dying. He then turned to Umbra, who was currently covered in green flames. He was unfamiliar with this attack, but when he noticed that not much damage was done he was relieved. And yet, When he turned around, a massive grin was on Rex's face. "Now you're actually fucked," he said with a chuckle. The next moment, a crack in space was formed and a figure walked out. He was 2 meters tall, with white hair that faded into an abyssal black as wisps of green smoke floated around him. A golden crown framing his face and a red gemstone on his forehead. "Let me introduce you to my Black Prince, the Lord of the Shadow Realm and complete legacy holder, Mordred," Rex announced, his smile getting more and more pronounced at the sinking expression that appeared on Spade's face. Umbra, who saw Mordred, instantly shivered as he straightened his back. His eyes went wide in simultaneous realization and shock. There was silence for a couple of minutes. In that time, Spade's face changed colors multiple times from pale white to green to purple and finally to black. "By now you should have understood who this is, right? The last remaining Doom Walker." "How?" Spade said between gritted teeth. This was not the way things should be going. He was supposed to have the complete and utter advantage. Why were things so different? Why was this common trainer in this unremarkable region so lucky? A magician never tells," Rex said while putting his index finger over his mouth. He was already half cheering in his mind. He got void burn off, which meant that Umbra's attack damage was reduced by 40%. Gaia had told him that it would be enough to increase his chance of winning to 87%. The reason it was still not 100% or even 90% was due to secret trump cards Spade might and will most definitely have in the form of moves or otherwise. There was also the fact that moves like Hell's Chains and Hell's Gate did less damage to Abyssal Legacy Pokémon. This included the status effect. According to Mordred's explanation via telepathy, it had to do with the Abyssal Legacy having some similarities with his power, effectively making the attacks that used void energy become less potent. But it was enough to calm his raging heart. Acting calm in such a situation was incredibly hard. But all that simulation work really paid off. He was able to stay cold as ice under pressure and won this seemingly small trade. He could have killed Spade instantly since Mordred used Hell's Gate, which had infinite range within his field of vision. He could spawn an attack inside his neck and kill him instantly. But that wouldn't solve the problem. He was after Umbra. He and Machamp needed the full legacy. So if Spade died, Umbra would probably flee. And he couldn't have that since stopping him was impossible. Now, he had the upper hand. As long as he injured Umbra enough to stop him from escaping, it was enough to guarantee the success of his plan. And by the looks of it, his opponent didn't know about this almost crippling status that was applied to him. Therefore, the plan was going accordingly so far. "You surprise me more and more, Rex Pierce. But as you can see, your Pokémon's attack didn't even harm mine," he said with some regained confidence. Rex pretended to frown slightly. "I can see that. It seems my little trick didn't pay off. Quite unfortunate for you. But it doesn't matter, I will soon have that Pokémon for myself. Who knew I would obtain a second legacy holder? Ha! Just my luck. In any case, you have asked how I got my name correct. I think I can spare the time for some quick storytelling," he said while making himself comfortable on the couch. Rex had already told Mordred to control the void flames on Umbra and repress them. There might be some information to be gained from this story in the end. The green flames that were persistently clinging to Umbra seemed to be snuffed out, much to his relief. But unbeknownst to him, they were actually burning on the inside of his body. It would have continued to cause damage if it wasn't for Mordred controlling it not to. It became a sort of soul flame that did no damage to the physical body. So as far as Umbra was concerned, he was fine. Rex couldn't help but restrain a smile at Mordred's telepathic confirmation. Everything was going according to plan. My real name, which I don't mind telling you since you'll both be dying anyway, is Robert Madrazo. I was a fanatic for Pokémon since I first understood what they were. At the young age of 10, I was already a full-fledged trainer and a finalist in the Kanto League. I even won that and went on to face the Elite Four. I clawed my way up, with tooth and nail, and finally, I was able to meet the champion. But his skills completely differed from the four I had just defeated. He was a monster. He had Pokémon with strength that surpassed the limit of what I thought possible. Beyond the ceiling, I had previously thought unbreachable. That's when my mentor and friend, Bill, who lives a bit beyond Cerulean City, came in. He and I became even closer after my defeat. We were both entranced by the champion's Pokémon. And we wanted to know the true limits of a Pokémon's potential. A very discreet rumor was circulating around the city one day that caught our attention. A cave that was described to have paintings dozens of meters high spanning the entirety of the cave. It depicted the method of unlocking something within a certain Pokémon through some sort of ritual. We naturally wouldn't hesitate to explore. But what we found was beyond the scope of our current understanding. It took 3 years to decipher the true meaning of the paintings. It described the blossoming of a black rose after being watered by the blood of thousands of its kind. Bill instantly refused to believe this and even wanted to blow it up in order to stop others from being misled. Ha! The fucking fool he was. If only he knew what would come of a result of that simple painting. He said, turning slightly to gaze at Umbra. Rex understood that this cave painting depicted the method of unlocking the abyssal legacy within a Pokémon. So, I searched for the strongest Marchop in the entirety to Kanto, costing me 2 years of my time. But finally, I met the right one. The cream of the crop. The future king of combat. We trained and trained from that day forward. He fought hundreds of trainers from Kanto, even going to other regions. And in the process, killing every single Marchop, Machoke and Machamp we could find or that crossed our path without exception. And finally, 2 years later, we succeeded. I was able to bring out the full potential of my Pokémon. I was unbeatable. Also I thought until I came upon a different mural in the depths of the Galar region. Deep within the mountainous region. A painting describing the inheritor of Arsusa's full power. The god of martial arts. The Machamp made of light. When I saw that, I was stunned. But when I read about how the abyssal legacy, as I had just then come to realize, was actually weaker than the light legacy. And that there was an even greater power when the winner of the battle was decided. As you can expect, I tried to create the light Machamp, but I only came to find out almost 5 years later that there was a special, nigh impossible set of restrictions put in place. And that one needed to find the right keys to unlock them. I tried and tried but I could never find it. And in a fit of rage, I had Umbra kill my other Machamp. I continued to search, not only for more clues but for people that had a black Marchop, Machoke or Machamp anywhere in the world. That's when I ran into Sundown. An organization that chased after the power of legacies. They strived to rule the world when every single legacy Pokémon had been acquired and a massive war would be unleashed. When they realized that I had obtained a legacy, well, they tried to take it. Sadly, one of their members died and so did his legacy Pokémon under Umbra's hands. There was no room for the weak, so I took his place. and I earned the code name Sinistro Spade. But one day, while sitting on a very small island having given up on finding the legacy Machamp I was so desperately looking for, I received a video from one of my associates. He paused, looking at Giovanni with a grin. Giovanni didn't even flinch and stared at him calmly, notifying me of the appearance of a black Machop. You wouldn't believe how shocked I was. In all honesty, I was in disbelief. I couldn't believe it. I had tried everything, spent billions of dollars chasing after baseless rumors and hints that led nowhere in the end. But a no-name, young kid like yourself, was able to crack the code. I was quite honestly full of rage. I don't get it. What right do you have to receive such a gift? What right? You did nothing, so you, therefore, earned nothing. I have spent my entire life searching for this knowledge, and your stupid ass just runs into it. It's infuriating. So, I threw diplomacy out the window. I didn't care anymore. I was, and still will, rip your fucking head off and mount it on a pike. There's your fucking story. Now that I have satisfied your last wish, I think it's time you satisfied mine. Hand over Machamp's Pokeball and I will give you a painless death. Struggle, and I will kill everyone you love. His words made Rex flinch slightly. A few weeks ago, such a threat would have meant nothing. But now, he couldn't help but admit that love was a double-edged sword. Especially that Elisa girl. I'll make sure to rip her digits off one at a time. Slowly and painfully. As for the twins, I'll come up with something colorful that's to my liking. He said with a sinister grin. Ha 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 ha. There was a short silence before Rex burst into a laugh that echoed through the room, catching everyone off guard. Clap. 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 He clapped slowly as he stared at Spade's face. You really shouldn't have said that. I mean, seriously. There are lines you just don't cross. Rex said with an infuriated laugh. Spade was confused, but his grin remained. And why is that? Rex smiled widely as a red aura surged out of his body that manifested into the silhouette of a devil that appeared behind him instantly. It had 6 arms and resembled an asura. Glowing black eyes and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. Massive claws. It shocked everyone to their cores. Even Mordred was stunned. A trace of fear surged in his heart. Fear he had never felt before except in the presence of one being. Arceus himself. Because the protagonist always gets a boost. Rex said with a mocking smile. There was a confused expression on both Giovanni and Spade's faces. Time's up. Our game ends here. Rex spoke before snapping his fingers. This is villain one-on-one, Spade. Damn it, such a dumbass. Doesn't he know not to piss off the protagonist? Big shout out to Celestial_Paragon for the backstory of Spade. Keep it up with the great ideas. The exact moment after he snapped his fingers, a massive portal swallowed everyone in the room. Spade and Umbra didn't even have time to react before they were submerged in the void. The next instant they appeared in the middle of a very remote part of Kanto. A place Rex had been with his Pokémon for training. This place was hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest town. Let alone city. He went this far to train Steelix, Machamp and Arcanine with the legacy tier skills. If one watched them train and looked at the terrain now, they could probably identify the craters left behind. Spade had a heavy frown on his face when he looked around. Where are we? He asked in a deep voice as he looked at Rex, who was back to normal, but his eyes had a red luster to them. As if they could swallow your soul if you weren't careful. Rex grinned at his words. Somewhere nobody will be able to hear your screams. Spade was stunned for a moment, but before he could voice his response, Umbra burst out into a ball of jade-green fire, causing Spade to flinch slightly and turn around. "What is this? I thought it went away," he asked with a grimace. "Ha! Nah, that won't go away no matter what you try. That is something called Void Burn. Cuts your Pokémon's attack stat by 40%. Rex revealed with a triumphant smile. Umbra and Spade's faces went black instantly. Dozens of creases appeared on their faces from the intense frowning. He didn't respond instantly but looked at Umbra instead. "Can you get rid of it?" he asked with slight nervousness. He really couldn't afford to have Umbra's attack be cut down by almost half. Umbra closed his eyes and tried to get rid of it to no avail. But he was able to suppress it, causing him to smile slightly. "I was able to suppress the effects, but my attack is still cut down by 25%, Umbra said out loud. As his voice fell on the ears of everyone present, the green flames died down slightly. Rex was stunned for a split second. How is that possible? It's not impossible. Umbra is simply that strong. Though Mordred is a full legacy holder, he is still not Machamp's match, sadly. But the good thing is the effect is still in place. Gaia said honestly. Rex could only sigh in his heart. Who knew his little plan would have almost become redundant due to a gap in strength? "It is what it is, we can't do much about it," he said in resignation. But this didn't dampen his spirits. He still had a lot of cards in his hand. Spade calmed down slightly at Umbra's words and then turned to look around again. "Oh, where's that backstabbing little rat?" he asked, looking around trying to find Giovanni, who was nowhere to be seen. Rex shrugged. What use would he have here? He doesn't have the strength necessary to intervene anyway. He responded casually. Spade clicked his tongue slightly. "TCH, and here I hope to kill two birds with one stone. No matter, I'll deal with him later. Anyway, I think it's time we end this little charade, don't you think?" he asked, smiling again. Rex didn't back down and stared at him before extending a hand out. From seemingly out of nowhere, a pokeball appeared in his hand. It was matte black with golden lights coming from the stripes on it. This surprised Spade since this was a pokeball he had never seen before. Rex didn't pay attention to him and casually threw it out. Bang! A building light burst out of the pokeball, forcing everyone to close their eyes momentarily. When the light faded, Machamp could be seen, with his arms crossed and chest puffed out arrogantly as he stared at Umbra. They made direct eye contact, with neither side backing down. The oppressive yet awe-inspiring aura burst out of Machamp, forcing a heavy weight on everyone's shoulders. Spade's eyes widened at the sight of his long-cherished dream. But before he could even open his mouth, Machamp's words rung in his ears. "So, this is the arrogant little man and his pet dog who have a fixation on me, huh? Honestly, I'm a bit disappointed. Who would have thought you would be this weak? You bore me," he said arrogantly. A mocking smile on his face. Spade was stunned for a minute as he turned to look at Rex, who was chuckling to the side. "Pet dog, you say? You are but a bug to be stepped on. Don't play God in front of me, boy," Umbra said in a deep tone. Clearly not impressed by Machamp's words. Machamp nodded slightly. "You may be right. I don't have the strength to beat you in a 1v1. But you forgot something crucial. I'm not alone. At the end of his words, a rift was opened in pace and the body of Mordred became visible. Green wisps of smoke surrounded him as an aura of death and chaos clung to his body. It was suffocating. Umbra's brow twitched slightly at the sight of Mordred. He clearly took that smaller Pokémon to be a serious threat. Rex smiled slightly and began to float into the air under the use of his aura. He simply placed it under his feet and made it rise. Simple and effective. Spade saw this and copied his action perfectly. I don't think there is any more need for words, is there? Rex asked. No, there is not. Spade said seriously. Rex smiled happily. Great, Machamp, rip Umbra's head off his shoulders, use bullet punch please. Boom. Before his words even finished, Umbra was already sprawled on the ground, getting his head caved in by unending punches ranging in the thousands. They were so fast that they broke the sound barrier by multiple times. Cheap shots won't help you, Rex. Umbra. It was simply one word, but instantly, the barrage stopped as he caught Machamp's fists in his. A grin surfaced on his face. Use bullet punch as well, Spade said. But before Umbra could even move, a muddy foot smashed into his jaw, making him spin in place before blasting outwards in a delayed explosion of force. Mordred appeared in front of Machamp. Did you forget about me, dumbass? He asked in a mocking tone. Umbra went tumbling to the ground due to Mordred's kick. It did not damage him, but it was enough to piss off both Spade and Umbra. But before Spade could order another attack, a foot smashed into his nose, breaking it instantly. This caused him to stumble back and fall on his aura platform. He stared at the perpetrator with wide eyes. Rex shrugged and began to jump up and down repeatedly with a smile on his face. What? Did you expect to just stand there? Nah, I'm going to break you over my knee while my teammates tear your dog to shreds. He said with a savage grin. The red Asura appeared like a ghost and stood calmly behind Rex. A demonic smile tugging at his lips, mimicking Rex's. This once again gave Spade the creeps. He had no clue what that thing was, but he felt like he was vulnerable when in its presence. Rex was also experiencing some changes to his eyesight. It was like everything had turned red, time slowed down, and he felt stronger. He felt Spade's slight fear towards the Asura behind him. And it somehow made him stronger. As if he was feeding off of that fear. And he wanted more. Terror, he voiced, his tone returning to the deep demonic one from before. Show me just how strong you are, Spade. He said before flashing towards him. Spade crossed his arms in front of him to block the punch. Bang! Crunch! A small crunch was heard from his left forearm, causing Spade to grimace slightly. His fear rose at a snail pace, but it was still rising. And Rex could feel it. Such strength! Why? Why is a human able to exhibit such strength? This is beyond even aura, he thought to himself before shooting his leg towards Rex's stomach at fast speed. Bang! The foot made contact, but Rex didn't even budge. He looked down playfully before raising his gaze again to meet Spade's now shaking eyes from disbelief. That's it. Asterisk long sniff asterisk that fear, give me more. Rex said, his eyes turning crimson as red transparent like fire surged out of his body as two warhammers appeared in his hands. What the fuck are you? You're no human. You can't be. What is that technique you're training? Spade asked. Rex went for another hit with his hammers, but he was met with Umbra's hard abs. The attack caused a small shockwave that exploded out. But Umbra didn't even feel a thing. He raised his hand and slapped Rex away as someone would to a fly. Boom! Rex flew out like a rocket and collided with the ground. Umbra was preparing to follow up when his arms were restrained by Machamp and he was stabbed in the stomach by Mordred, sending him shooting out in the opposite direction. "I don't think you understand, you stupid four-armed freak," Mordred said in annoyance. "Hey! Watch it." Machamp said, as he flinched at his teammate's words. Mordred froze for a moment and smiled apologetically at Machamp before the two rushed towards Umbra at the same time. They didn't have to check on Rex for two reasons. 1. They got a telepathic message from him telling them he was fine. And 2. They were scared shitless. They didn't know what was happening, but it scared them deeply. It was something that came from their bones. A natural instinct. And it freaked them out. So, they took his word as gospel. Rex emerged from the crater with his clothes torn to rags. His entire upper body was exposed, showing his upper body that seemed to have been carved out of stone. His left arm was completely shattered. Bones sticking out of places, blood running down his hand and dripping onto the floor in a constant stream. Spade frowned even heavier at the sight. "You fucking freak! What lab did you escape out of?" Spade asked. Rex chuckled at his words. The red fire-like aura flooded into his arm, healing it at a visible rate. But he got weaker due to this. He was back to base state. Rex felt it was a slight pity, but he would get more soon enough. He felt his Pokémon's fear as well, which helped him get stronger. Even though he didn't want his Pokémon to fear him, in this scenario, it was beneficial. Spade went on the offensive and shot towards the ground, performing an axe kick. Rex raised his arms and blocked the kick before going for a leg sweep. Spade jumped up slightly and went for a sideways kick. Rex caught his other leg and swung him in a circle. He got faster and faster as he built momentum before releasing him. Spade was sent flying towards a tree that was snapped in half. But Rex squinted slightly. "Very impressive," he commented. Spade had used aura and formed it into a quick shield to block the impact of the tree. He was completely fine from that attack. Rex reformed his hammers that had dissipated from Umbra's hit and threw them towards Spade. The latter created a spear and shield which he used to block the hit before getting into a defensive position, his shield raised up and his spear against it. Rex smiled and created double karma with chains that linked to cuffs on his hands. He began to swing them. They were moving so fast that Spade wasn't able to keep up anymore. They were going at such a fast speed that they created a piercing whistle as they tore through the air around them. Spade threw his spear out. Rex responded by casually moving his left wrist and forcing the karma to spin in front of him. The spear was cut in half and dropped to the floor. He then thrust his right hand in a forward motion, causing the karma that had built up a horrifying amount of momentum forward. Spade's eyes widened to the maximum in order to not miss this. He raised his shield and created 3 throwing knives in his now free hand. He blocked and threw them out at the same time at a curved angle. He then stepped on the chain in order to stop Rex from retrieving his weapon. Bang! 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 The sound of fist against flesh continued to ring out in the open plain. The grass was stained with blood as 2 men duked it out without any intention of holding back. Trainer vs trainer. Pokémon vs Pokémon. Nobody intended to stand back and watch. Spade and Rex had been fighting for 5 whole minutes, hammers, spears, throwing knives, swords, everything you could imagine, they used. Mordred and Machamp were struggling to restrain Umbra as they too desperately fought. Boom! Machamp exploded out with a full power blast cannon just as Umbra went for a punch, blowing the latter back hundreds of meters. But out of seemingly nowhere, Mordred appeared and clotheslined him with a kick to the back of the head. Umbra's face hit the dirt at full speed. Everyone knew this was going nowhere and that it was time to ramp it up. Rex decided to finish it once and for all. He created 10 throwing knives that he threw out continuously as he approached his opponent. Spade was forced on the defense due to the lethality of the knives. They were surgically precise. Rex finally got close and went for a leg sweep that Spade easily predicted and jumped into the air. But Rex smiled slightly and spun before going for a sidekick. Spade had nowhere to go and wasn't fast enough to escape with his aura and was hit directly in the stomach. He instantly shot out like a bullet and smashed into the trunk of a thick tree. Blood dripped down from his lips as his head hung low. Umbra saw this and burst into a crazed frenzy as he made his way towards Rex with a murderous air. Rex couldn't help but grin mockingly. "I kicked the owner's ass, and the dog comes running," he joked. Before Umbra could even get close, a massive black and blue dog came out of nowhere at the speed of a rocket and smashed his head right into Umbra's ribs, cracking them completely. Umbra was sent flying faster than the speed of sound, and crashed through dozens of trees before he finally stopped. Spade was stunned as he looked at the majestic image of Arcanine. His blue, fire-like mane blew in the wind that had turned warmer from his mere presence. His hands began to shake as his eyes widened to their maximum. How can this be? Why do you have another one?" he asked, yelling by the end as his hands dug into the earth. Rex's grin never left his face as he turned to his opponent. "As I said before, you know nothing. Not even the slightest bit." Spade covered his face with his hands and began to laugh to himself in a crazed manner, surprising Rex and his Pokémon. "This is the best day of my life. I can't believe that you have so many treasures for me. I have to repay you, Rex." Umbra, Stage 1. Release. Boom. A pillar of black light 10 meters thick rose into the sky instantly. The ground began to shake as a massive hand made of black fire rose from the pile of broken trees. Under the stupefied gazes of Rex and his Pokémon, a 15-meter-tall Umbra appeared. He had 6 arms, horns and a pair of wings on his back. Claws dragged on the ground as they dug into the earth. Razor-sharp teeth could be seen shining through his mouth. It was like the devil himself had descended. "Holy shit! Machamp, ready up, time to fight. No holding back," Rex said, excitement in his tone. This made Spade frown. He didn't expect that even this wouldn't scare the boy. He wondered what he was up to. Boom! The clouds began to plague the sky, black as ink as golden thunder rumbled like the end of the world. Dawn of apocalypse. Rex yelled, his smile turning a bit crazy. Spade began to shake as he witnessed something he simply couldn't process. Machamp was hit with a thunderbolt and began to grow to match the size of Umbra. His black color started to brighten up and even turn completely golden white. A pair of black eyes could be seen staring at Umbra. His forearms became 6 and behind him, a massive ring of light, like an oversized halo. Arcanine, run like the wind. Soar to skies. Rex yelled with a thrilled smile. Arcanine howled to the sun in the sky as his body grew and elongated. He jumped into the air but never descended. He frolicked around in the air in such a magical way that it entranced everyone present for a moment. Mordred appeared from the void on Machamp's shoulder with 2 short swords. His hair was completely black and jade green fire burned off his body like a human torch. Rex grabbed his last pokeball and held it up slightly. The chrome exterior reflected the rays of sunlight that landed on Spade, catching his attention. The god of war, the Terminator, the bane of legacy holders. My one and only iron wall. Steelix. Whoosh. Rex threw the ball into the air with great force. Bang! As soon as it exploded, a massive mechanical snake appeared out of thin air and hovered there slightly. Steelix looked at Umbra slightly for a moment as if analyzing something before his eyes shone red like lanterns in the night sky. He then descended like an anchor. Boom! A cloud of dust rose and from within, the sound of machinery moving could be heard. Then, mechanical laughter so horrifying and full of brutality that it sent shivers down the spine of everyone present rung out in everyone's ears. Even Umbra. He. Red eyes flashed from within the cud before a massive mechanical hand pierced through it, dissipating it instantly. His hand carried so much momentum with it that it actually uprooted the surrounding 100 trees in an instant. And finally, his image was revealed. A lizard on its hind legs, massive metal spikes on its back, massive legs, tail and long arms. Rex smiled joyfully at the arrival of his crew. He turned to the stupefied Spade still sitting down on the ground against the tree. This. Right here. This is power. Come, Spade, show me just how you will overcome this mountain placed upon you. Will you reach the summit and surpass me? Or will you be forever buried under it? He said seriously. This was all the hard work Gaia and him had been working on. This was their proudest achievement. Spade snapped out of his thoughts and turned to the solitary Umbra on the opposite side. He then turned to Rex and flashed him an honest smile before turning to Umbra. Rex followed his line of sight and so did everyone else. Umbra had a solemn smile on his face. For as long as I can remember, I have looked for an equal. His tone got deeper with every step he took towards Machamp. The latter stood there calmly. One who could push me, one who could surprise me, one who could even beat me, yet all I ever found was disappointment. He said before turning to Arcanine, Steelix and Mordred. Will one of you, finally, give me what I desire? He asked, stopping 10 meters from Machamp. All four of them looked at Umbra dead in the eye before replying in unison. Life, to cherish those around us. Fight, to protect those we love. Die, in a blazing ball of glory. Only in death do we know rest. Go. Go. Rex and Spade commanded at the same time as they pointed at each other's Pokémon. Instantly, Machamp and Umbra disappeared from their previous spots. Boom! A massive wave of air exploded out as the two collided with each other. All of their hands locked together in a stalemate. But soon, the winner was seen. Umbra was completely overpowering Machamp in pure strength, causing the latter to frown and grit his teeth. You lost, little rat. Umbra said with a grin. With every one of his words, he would take a step forward, causing Machamp to be pushed back, creating deep tracks in the ground. I'm not alone, dumbass. Machamp responded before Umbra shot out sideways at immense speed, crashing into hundreds of trees. Mordred was seen hovering in midair with his leg stretched out. Hoo, that's 2 for 2 bird brain, Mordred said teasingly at the colossal figure getting up with a furious frown. You pest, Umbra spat, causing Mordred to grab his chest and feign pain. That hurts, man, he said with a chuckle before flashing out of sight and kicking Umbra back into the ground, causing him to eat a mouthful of dirt in the process. Boom! And that's 3 for 3. You don't learn do why he couldn't finish as he was yanked out of the air and crushed between the fingers of Umbra. Blood, bones and pieces of black flesh seeped out of the gaps between Umbra's hands, shocking everyone present. Spade was equally shocked. He didn't want to kill that one because it was a full legacy holder. But he was even more shocked at how fragile it was. Like a glass cannon. Umbra unclenched his hand and dropped the mutilated corpse of Mordred before raising his head to see Rex's reaction. But what he saw made him frown heavily. A calm smile was still present on his face. Clearly unfazed by what Umbra had just done. The latter turned to Machamp, who was staring at the blob of blood and flesh, and grinned slightly. You serve this piece of shit. I just killed one of your teammates and he smiles like an idiot. Do you really think he cares about you? He asked. Damn, playing the mind games are we? Asked a voice from behind him, causing Umbra to flinch heavily as he flashed out and appeared a few 100 meters away. He stared at the figure slowly getting up off of the ground. Slowly, under the shocked eyes of everyone present, Mordred raised his hand that only had some small muscle tendons and clearly showed his bones underneath. He slowly got up off the ground as his legs formed beneath him. Quickly, muscle began to grow and finally his skin and hair. He was completely fine. Who knew getting your bones crushed would be so exhilarating? He said with a pause as he turned to Umbra. His golden flame-like eyes burning fiercely. What the fuck? Spade exclaimed. How is that thing even alive? He was clearly crushed to death a moment ago. Mordred smiled slightly and raised a finger to his mouth. Ah. A magician never tells. He said, mimicking Rex perfectly. This caused Spade and Umbra to twitch violently as they stared at the clown in front of them. Enough with the chat, Arcanine meteor crash. Rex interrupted calmly. Spade realized that someone was actually missing. When he looked up he saw a terrifying scene. Dozens of kilometers above them, a streak of fire shot down at immense speed. Arcanine was a picture-perfect image of a meteor as he descended at devastating speed. It's not over. Sunny Day and Flamethrower. Hell's Chains, and Guardian of the Forest, Terra Nova, go! Rex yelled in quick succession. Boom! Arcanine actually begun to glow with a golden light briefly before the sun got even more intense. He then spat out a golden flamethrower that empowered the fire covering his descent. Even from his still high altitude, everyone could feel the heat increase at a drastic rate. Mordred glowed with a red light for an instant before chains appeared around Umbra instantly. There was no time to react at all. Not even in the slightest. Machamp roared to the skies as his fists glowed green before smashing them into the ground. Instantly, a massive hand made of trees began to grow around Umbra before clenching, tightly holding him in place. Steelix laughed in his mechanical voice while smashing his fists together before he too sent the barreling into the ground. A pillar of earth 500 meters in diameter with Umbra in the middle shot upwards towards Arcanine, who was coming in at blinding speed. Spade marveled at their teamwork and couldn't speak a word until a second before impact. Indomitable will, he said in a mere whisper. But in the ears of everyone present it was enough to call it a shout. There was no reaction like everyone expected when the impact finally came. Like a nuclear bomb going off, the light that shone from the blast lit up the already bright sky. It was so blinding that everyone had to close their eyes. The air seemed to shatter as everyone felt the vibrations. The oceans nearby began to churn and swirl at a violent pace. The ground cracked from the mere pressure from the air. And a sonic boom clapped in everyone's ears. Then there was silence. When everyone regained their vision, a horrifying scene came into view. Rex's face went pale as it twisted in rage and fear. Umbra was hovering in the air, completely fine, and in his hands, a bloody Arcanine with his 2 front arms missing. His lower jaw was gone and his horns snapped. Umbra seemed to have gotten bigger as his black aura burst out of his body even more violently than before. All this while Spade's mocking voice sounded in his ears. "You overestimate yourself, dear little Rex. But I commend you for making me reveal one of my little tricks," he said before clapping with fake praise. But Rex wasn't registering anything he was saying. His eyes went wide to the extreme as he took in the dying image of his loyal friend dangling from Umbra's hands limply. His mouth parted slightly, letting out the blood that accumulated from his injured tongue. He had bitten it so hard that it almost detached. But he was unfeeling, his eyes went red as tears welled up in his eyes. Memories flashed by his eyes. Memories of the sweet Growlithe in that forest all those months ago. The happy-go-lucky little kid running around on the sand was now dangling limply in Umbra's hand. The stoic image of Arcanine as he stared at the sunset shattered into little pieces as tears threatened to fall from his eyes. His head snapped up, his eyes wide open and red. His teeth clenched to the extreme as his gums bled slightly. He grabbed his blood-stained shirt and yelled as the tears finally fell down his cheeks. "Arcanine! Smith! A massive golden radiance exploded out of Arcanine instantly. Like a flashbang going off, it blinded everyone. Umbra was stunned motionless due to the sudden action and couldn't respond in time. "Mordred! Hell's chains!" Rex yelled. Mordred had already launched the move the instant he heard Rex's words. Chains wrapped around Umbra instantly, stopping all movement from him. Arcanine rose into the clouds that were now golden. They slowly swirled around before gathering. Like a whirlpool, they became smaller and smaller until finally, a massive golden sword could be seen. Nobody could react. Swish! A minuscule, clean-cutting sound could be heard. There was no destruction. No loud sound. But oh, the ground, Umbra's top left arm was lying there. Bloody and mutilated. Like mincemeat that had just been prepared. There was also a deep gash on his neck, but it was stopped by some kind of barrier. An ungodly scream echoed out the next moment. Umbra clutched his stump in pain. Blood was shooting out like a broken faucet. "Umbra, heal it! Heal it now!" Spade shouted quickly. Umbra's twisted face slowly calmed down and quickly. The blood stopped. But that was it. There was nothing else. This caused Umbra and Spade to instantly grimace. "What, you thought it would be that easy? Smite is not just a move. Whatever it touches will be cut. Whatever is cut can never be mended. In words stupid people like yourself can understand, Umbra will never get his arm back as long as he lives. That is the price you pay for hurting my friend. You're lucky you kept your head in the first place," Rex said murderously. Rex was informed of this by Gaia the moment the wound appeared. It caught him by surprise. And it seems that the outcome of the fight wasn't his complete loss. Before Spade and Umbra could fully digest the news, Rex quickly recovered Arcanine back into his Pokeball where he was receiving emergency treatment from his Pokeball tech. It seemed that implementing this technology when he did was the right move. Otherwise, Arcanine would have died here. The only other option was to have Mordred take him to the nearest Pokémon Center, but that would mean having one less combatant for a little while. And a little while was all that was needed for a loss. He already knew that it would get harder now that Arcanine was out of the fight. "You piece of shit!" Spade yelled furiously. "Fuck you too, buddy. This is only the beginning. I think I'll cut all of his arms off while I'm at it. Let's get started then, shall we?" Machamp used Toxic Punch, Mordred used Shadow Barrage, Steelix used Stomping Tantrum. "Go!" he commanded. "Umbra, we'll have to make do with one less arm. But no more half-assing this, we're finishing this in my go. Use Accelerated Delay," he commanded. Rex's eyes widened as he tried to grasp everything that was going on. Gaia was recording everything and so was Steelix. So, using this move a second time was likely to not work. But would he need a second time? Umbra took a step forward and time slowed down instantly. Rex could feel it, his mind wasn't slowed down, only his movements were. He even felt his thoughts speeding up. He thought that this wasn't exactly the best move until he witnessed the following actions. Umbra disappeared from where he stood and appeared behind Machamp before kicking him to the ground. The latter was so slowed down that he couldn't even move. Rex finally understood. He received the benefits without getting the debuffs. An incredibly strong move. To be able to manipulate time was on par with Mordred's space manipulation. But this couldn't continue, or he would lose. But what could he possibly do in this position? It must have a time limit, right? Mordred used Supersonic Flash. Machamp use Protect. Steelix use Iron Bind, he said telepathically. He contacted Steelix via Gaia. Everyone went into action instantly. A round shield formed around Machamp, stopping all the hits from Umbra for a brief moment. Mordred turned jade green and regained his insane movement speed. He rampaged against Umbra, taking his focus away from Machamp. Steelix slowly slammed his fist into the ground and iron spikes shot out of the ground under Umbra's feet. It went straight through them, causing the latter to yelp in pain, but the spikes didn't stop. Like liquid, they climbed onto his body and covered him from the neck down in iron. The next instant spike punctures his body everywhere. Yet he couldn't move in the least. Mordred was slamming his fists on his face, causing Umbra's head to bounce around on his neck like a punching bag. "Hell's Chains!" Rex commanded. It was a silence skill. So, he could counter the move by using it. Chains appeared over Umbra's body just as he was freed for him, iron prison binding him once again. Instantly, Accelerated Delay was stopped and time resumed normally. "No!" Spade screamed furiously. Rex couldn't help but smile slightly. It seems that it indeed had a long timer. He once again realized just how overpowered Mordred was. He was definitely the MVP of this fight so far. But it was time to bring things to the next level. He turned to his Iron Fortress. The last defense between success and failure. "Steelix. It's time for war, buddy, fire up the engine, carnage is in town," Rex said with a grin. Steelix laughed in his mechanical voice as his eyes shone red. His mouth began to glow a vibrant red that soon turned blinding before it shot towards Umbra, who was regaining his balance from the last combo. The laser beam shot towards Umbra at a fast speed, causing the latter to frown. He could feel the power coming off of it. Not to mention the penetrative quality it carried. "Use Protect," Spade commanded, snapping Umbra out of his dilemma. A split second before the attack landed, a semi-translucent film covered Umbra in his entirety, stopping the attack. "Use Crush Grip." Rex's voice sounded out the next instant, accompanied by the sound of bones being crunched as another one of Umbra's arms was forcibly torn off. Machamp could go through moves like Protect. Nobody was safe. But unlike with Arcanine, Umbra didn't panic or show much reaction. He gazed at his arm in Machamp's tight grip and chuckled slightly. A second later a brand new arm was regenerated. It was covered in mucus and looked wet. But it was brand new. This made Rex frown. He wasn't sure if this was an ability, a move or simply an immense regenerative capability. He hoped it wasn't the last option since that would prove to be quite troublesome. If it was a move, he could whittle it down until he could no longer use it. As for an ability, well, there was no use doing anything against it. What this told him is that there was a greater chance that any damage that wasn't lethal wouldn't kill. Steelix use Sunsteel Strike. Mordred use Hell's Gate to cripple his spine. It will buy us enough time. Machamp use Bulk Up and Close Combat. Go! He commanded quickly. Steelix began to charge up a massive amount of energy in his mouth. Machamp collided with Umbra in hand-to-hand combat. Since Umbra was missing an arm, it was a little easier to cope with the sheer strength he had. As they fought, a small rift opened and a black hand reached out and jabbed directly at Umbra's spine, shattering it completely. Instantly, the behemoth collapsed to the ground as his legs lost all strength. Machamp used this opportunity to smash Umbra with as much power as possible. Aura 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 aura. Thousands of punches exploded out as after image upon after image was conjured from the sheer speed. A crater was being formed as Machamp dug into the earth from the AoE damage he was dishing out. Umbra couldn't heal as fast since he sustained an immense amount of damage. Umbra used Devil's Shout. Spade commanded. Enough. A ripple in the air could be seen as Umbra's voice rang in everyone's ears. Everyone felt crippling fear dawn on them. So much so that they fell to their knees while shaking. Rex was immune thanks to Gaia, who helped him get rid of the mental attack. Steelix was a computer, so he was immune as well. Rex grabbed his chin slightly, a mental attack. Not bad. He commented while nodding slightly. Machamp use Guardian of the Storm. Mordred use Lance of Justice. Just as his words fell, a massive beam of light shot out of Steelix's mouth, colliding with Umbra, who was still on the ground half a kilometer underground. The attack caused the latter to be pushed down as the earth became lava instantly. The heat was so high that it became unbearable for Rex, forcing him to use Aura to shield himself. Go! Now! Rex shouted. Machamp roared to the skies as golden lightning rained down on his halo that was clinging to his back this whole time. He grabbed it from over his shoulder and raised it to the sky. Mordred formed a spear made of light that contrasted to the jade one he used against Machamp before. That one was called the Spear of Injustice. Used against light-type Pokémon. But Rex needed one that would work against abyssal types. The only problem was that Mordred informed him that his idea wasn't feasible simply because Mordred himself didn't have the light attribute. Gaia instantly gave a conjecture that, as he was seeing now, seemed to work. He got Machamp to help infuse his power into the spear. And it worked. The move functioned the same way Spear of Injustice did. But the only thing was, the stats weren't cut in half. Spear of Injustice was so strong because it was backed by full legacy power. But since it is only using half a legacy worth of power, it only put out half the power. So, Umbra's stats would only be cut down by 25%. But that was enough to especially guarantee the win. As soon as the beam of light dissipated, Umbra's charred body came into view. He was burning alive as smoke came off of his body continuously. But there was no pity in Rex's eyes. Machamp, go! He ordered. Ah! Machamp roared again at the top of his lungs as he threw the ring towards Umbra. A flash of light could be seen streaking across the air for an instant before it collided with Umbra. It exploded out before wrapping itself around him and raising him into the air where Mordred was waiting. Mordred, go! Mordred winded his arm holding the spear back as it began to shine brightly. Like a star in the night sky, it attracted the attention of everyone present. Boom! The spear shot out of his hand at the speed of light. Bang! The spear instantly penetrated through Umbra's torso as golden cracks began to spread outwards like dry mud. The light didn't dissipate as expected but was instead directed towards Umbra's wrists where golden cuffs formed. This proved that Umbra had all his stats cut down by 25%. Rex knew that it was coming to an end. This battle had been a dangerous one and Arcanine almost died. Mordred didn't die simply because of his stupidly overpowered ability. If it was Machamp by himself, he would have lost without much suspense. It really came down to teamwork and the use of Hell's Chains. It was one of if not the most important trump cards in his arsenal. Time to end this, everyone. We are using our last combo move. Anti-Arceus mode. Go! Steelix's mechanical laughter rung out as his body morphed once again. As it did, he made his way towards Machamp who was standing there waiting. Machamp raised one of his left fists to connect it with Steelix. The instant they made contact, Steelix melted like hot iron and climbed onto Machamp. Slowly, a suit of mechanical armor began to take shape under the stupefied expression of Spade. There was a small diamond on the forehead where Mordred warped into. The instant they connected together, a massive ray of rainbow light descended from the blue and time subsequently stopped completely. Machamp lost his 6 arms and only retained 2 of them. A Machamp wearing futuristic armor glowing with golden white and abyssal black light came into view. The golden halo had weird black engraving on it now and a crown made of sparkling jade floated slightly above his head. Rex raised his arms with a triumphant smile. Spade, I may have been a no-name trainer. But it will not remain that way for long. One day, I will stand atop this world as the strongest trainer. But I will not reach that summit alone. This is my current limit. This is the culmination of my hard work. This is death incarnate. This is the foundation upon which I will kill Arceus with. I will extend you the same courtesy you once gave me. Hand over Umbra, and you will receive a painless death. Refuse, and I will take my time torturing the soul out of you. Make your choice. He voiced as the monstrous aura seeped out of the trio engulfing Umbra and Spade. With all the debuffs Umbra had received, he was no longer almighty. He was severely lacking currently. A shadow of his former self. Spade smiled slightly. It was an honest smile. One without any trace of malice or contempt. You have surpassed my expectations again and again. You have pushed the limit of what I thought possible. To overcome my strength, not alone, but with help. I do not look down on it since, in the end, the winner lives, and the loser dies. He paused and shook his head before sighing slightly. But it is not over yet. I cannot let it end. I have spent too much time, I have bled for this moment. I will not allow myself to lose. I cannot allow it. Rise. A massive black light shot into the air from Umbra's body. He continued to grow in size without stopping. Slowly he left the trio in shock as they were engulfed by his shadow. Umbra had grown to 50 meters tall. He lost his 6 arms and only now had 2. No wings, no horns. He was simply a black figure with no expression. Well, it was better to say they couldn't make out any expression. It was like staring at a shadow. You have shown your trump card. It is only right that I show mine. This is Umbra's Colossus form. If you can survive this, you win. I don't have to mention what happens if you lose. How about we forego pretenses and fight to our heart's content, Rex? Give us a run for our money. Show me the power you have fought so hard to obtain in such a short amount of time. Spade said while extending a hand out invitingly. A genuine smile on his face. Rex was surprised by his words, but even with his legacy, he couldn't find a trace of fear or malice in his words. Spade was speaking from the heart. This caused him to nod his head solemnly. I too want to know if I can tide through this with my Pokémon. No mercy. No mercy. Both yelled at the same time. Umbra's massive hand made a swatting gesture towards the floating trio that had now become one. The shiny exterior reflected the light from the halo behind them. Machamp lifted his left arm as a spear made of metal formed instantly. His eyes sparkled through the visor like a starry night sky. He looked at the incoming hand and smiled before shooting up higher using the rocket boosters on his back. A small ball of light could be seen flying through Umbra's fingers and up his arm at fast speed. It looked like a firefly dancing in the air. Umbra didn't have an expression on his face, all that could be seen was the solemnness in his eyes with a trace of contempt. Like a human killing a fly, his right hand shot forward and punched Machamp full force, sending the latter right into the floor where he continued to descend. Only stopping after half a kilometer. Before they could even get up, Umbra's foot had already covered their view entirely. Boom! The ground split from the stomp, causing massive pieces of earth to shoot up, forming cliffs. Dozens of massive canyons were formed instantly. Bang! The spear instantly penetrated through Umbra's torso as golden cracks began to spread outwards like dry mud. The light didn't dissipate as expected but was instead directed towards Umbra's wrists where golden cuffs formed. This proved that Umbra had all his stats cut down by 25%. Rex knew that it was coming to an end. This battle had been a dangerous one and Arcanine almost died. Mordred didn't die simply because of his stupidly overpowered ability. If it was Machamp by himself, he would have lost without much suspense. It really came down to teamwork and the use of Hell's Chains. It was one of, if not the most important trump cards in his arsenal. Time to end this, everyone. We are using our last combo move. Anti-Arceus mode. Go. Steelix's mechanical laughter rung out as his body morphed once again. As it did, he made his way towards Machamp, who was standing there waiting. Machamp raised one of his left fists to connect it with Steelix. The instant they made contact, Steelix melted like hot iron and climbed onto Machamp. Slowly, a suit of mechanical armor began to take shape under the stupefied expression of Spade. There was a small diamond on the forehead where Mordred warped into. The instant they connected together, a massive ray of rainbow light descended from the blue and time subsequently stopped completely. Machamp lost his 6 arms and only retained 2 of them. A Machamp wearing futuristic armor glowing with golden white and abyssal black light came into view. The golden halo had weird black engraving on it now, and a crown made of sparkling jade floated slightly above his head. Rex raised his arms with a triumphant smile. Spade, I may have been a no-name trainer, but it will not remain that way for long. One day, I will stand atop this world as the strongest trainer. But I will not reach that summit alone. This is my current limit. This is the culmination of my hard work. This is death incarnate. This is the foundation upon which I will kill Arceus with. I will extend you the same courtesy you once gave me. Hand over Umbra, and you will receive a painless death. Refuse, and I will take my time torturing the soul out of you. Make your choice. He voiced as the monstrous aura seeped out of the trio engulfing Umbra and Spade. With all the debuffs Umbra had received, he was no longer almighty. He was severely lacking currently. A shadow of his former self. Spade smiled slightly. It was an honest smile. One without any trace of malice or contempt. You have surpassed my expectations again and again. You have pushed the limit of what I thought possible. To overcome my strength, not alone, but with help. I do not look down on it since, in the end, the winner lives, and the loser dies. He paused and shook his head before sighing slightly. But it is not over yet. I cannot let it end. I have spent too much time, I have bled for this moment. I will not allow myself to lose. I cannot allow it. Rise. A massive black light shot into the air from Umbra's body. He continued to grow in size without stopping. Slowly he left the trio in shock as they were engulfed by his shadow. Umbra had grown to 50 meters tall. He lost his 6 arms and only now had 2. No wings, no horns. He was simply a black figure with no expression. Well, it was better to say they couldn't make out any expression. It was like staring at a shadow. You have shown your trump card. It is only right that I show mine. This is Umbra's Colossus form. If you can survive this, you win. I don't have to mention what happens if you lose. How about we forego pretenses and fight to our heart's content, Rex? Give us a run for our money. Show me the power you have fought so hard to obtain in such a short amount of time. Spade said while extending a hand out invitingly. A genuine smile on his face. Rex was surprised by his words, but even with his legacy, he couldn't find a trace of fear or malice in his words. Spade was speaking from the heart. This caused him to nod his head solemnly. I too want to know if I can tide through this with my Pokémon. No mercy. No mercy. Both yelled at the same time. Umbra's massive hand made a swatting gesture towards the floating trio that had now become one. The shiny exterior reflected the light from the halo behind them. Machamp lifted his left arm as a spear made of metal formed instantly. His eyes sparkled through the visor like a starry night sky. He looked at the incoming hand and smiled before shooting up higher using the rocket boosters on his back. A small ball of light could be seen flying through Umbra's fingers and up his arm at fast speed. It looked like a firefly dancing in the air. Umbra didn't have an expression on his face, all that could be seen was the solemnness in his eyes with a trace of contempt. Like a human killing a fly, his right hand shot forward and punched Machamp full force, sending the latter right into the floor where he continued to descend. Only stopping after half a kilometer. Before they could even get up, Umbra's foot had already covered their view entirely. Boom! The ground split from the stomp, causing massive pieces of earth to shoot up, forming cliffs. Dozens of massive canyons were formed instantly. Massive black chains appeared over Umbra's body, once again stopping him from moving in his entirety. No. Not again. Indomitable will. Spade yelled. The instant the beam of light descended on Umbra, a black light encased him in a cocoon. The beam drilled past Umbra and into the earth, where it continued to go through like a hot knife through butter. Dozens of kilometers down before it finally stopped. Rex looked at the massive chasm left behind and shivered slightly. The power was even stronger than when Machamp used it against Mordred. It was outright horrifying. But when he looked up again and saw Umbra emerging from the cocoon unharmed, a big frown dawned on his face. "Fuck, Rex, you madman, how are you able to exhibit such power with such little training? It's inconceivable. You almost got me, you crazy son of a bitch. But once again, you fall short just before the finish line. It must feel bad," Spade mocked with a smile. But before his very eyes, Rex began to change. His skin started to darken, his hair began to elongate, and his height started to increase. Soon, the image of Mordred appeared before him. "Surprise!" Mordred said while shaking his hands. Spade's eyes went wide as he raised a shaky finger in Mordred's direction. His mouth moved but no words came out. Like a fish out of water, his brain simply couldn't understand. Pucci. But before he could grasp the situation, a piercing sound was heard as it tore through flesh. Spade just couldn't react at all and simply looked down at his chest that had a bloody fist sticking out of it with a plain expression. "No true pain." Those words echoed in the depths of his soul as they entered through his ears. He raised his gaze back to Umbra, who was staring back at him with an unbelieving expression. A mixture of shock, disbelief and finally, sadness. Before Umbra couldn't even react, a beam of light 60 meters in diameter engulfed his back. Umbra didn't even flinch as he stared at Spade before a single tear dropped from his left eye. "It seems this is where our journey ends, friend. May we meet in our next life." His words shook Spade's soul to its very core as he saw Umbra be engulfed in the massive beam of light that pierced through the atmosphere and dispersed into space. When it was finally done, only small traces of ash could be seen floating in the wind before that too dissipated. Tears streamed down Spade's face as countless memories surfaced that had once been locked away. He didn't know if it was willingly or not, but he seemed to have forgotten about them until now. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. "Ha ha, Machop, use bullet punch." A young voice rang out in the vast expanse of trees. A black Machop could be seen grinning before it shot out towards Eradicate at fast speed. Bang! A muffled sound of a fist hitting flesh echoed out before an unconscious Raticate dropped to the floor. "Well done, Machop. I'm sure we'll be able to get that legacy soon enough. We'll be able to become the strongest in the world. We will rise to the summit and have our names carved in stone. They will build shrines in our honor," a young Spade said to the injured Machop as he wiped the sweat and cleaned the wounds. "Machop, Machop," his Pokémon responded enthusiastically. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. "Machoke, use poison jab repeatedly," a slightly older Spade voiced out. Machoke rushed forward and slammed his fist into the Machop in front of him, sending it to the ground. There was a begrudging look on both Spade and Machoke's faces as they stared at the wild unconscious Machop. "We have no choice, buddy. Power comes with sacrifice," Spade said as he clenched his teeth slightly. Machoke closed his eyes for a moment before opening them again. The pitying gaze full of compassion was gone and in its place, a ruthless bloodthirsty one appeared. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. "Kill them all, Machamp," Spade said casually as he leaned back on the tree behind him. In front of him, a family of Machops, Machokes and one Machamp helplessly resisted against the flurry of overwhelming attacks coming from Machamp. Spade closed his eyes in boredom and only opened them after the family was lying there cold and motionless. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. That's it, we have completed the legacy, Machamp. We have hit the top of this world. From now on, you are not fit to share the same name with weaker beings. From now on, you shall be called Umbra. For your shadow shall be the last thing they see. Agreed, Umbra replied before extending a fist out towards Spade, who happily connected with his own. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Blogsh. Spade spat out a mouthful of blood as he raised a hand trying to grab the last piece of ash that floated close to him. He stared at it as it rested on the palm of his hand. When did we lose our way, old friend? It was my fault that you ended up dying. Spade mumbled. You regret what you did? Rex asked with an arched brow. Spade chuckled before throwing up more blood. He wiped it with his hand before speaking. You misunderstand, boy. I do not regret the path I took. I only regret becoming so damn arrogant. If I had decided to do the dirty work myself, you would not have lived to see the sun. I don't care if I die. Fuck you. Kill me, torture me, do whatever the fuck you please. But know one thing, you better not let me escape. Because I will come after everything you love once I do. Spade said with a smile. I wasn't planning on it. You put up a good fight. All of this might have been reversed if you did exactly that. Instead of having Giovanni do all the work, you could have killed me instantly. But you grew arrogant and overconfident due to years of never facing a challenge. You stagnated. And the result is what you see here before you today. Your friend reduced to ash, and your life resting on the palm of my hands. As if on cue, Spade began to hear his heartbeat. Badump. 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 He looked down again to see Rex's hand holding his heart. What is Sundown? Where are their headquarters? How many members are there? Rex asked in a commanding tone. This made Spade chuckle. I could tell you since I have no reason to be loyal anymore. But if it makes your journey even the slightest bit harder, then I'm all for it. So, shove those questions up your ass. Rex was silent for a moment. Very well then. Bang. Rex crushed Spade's heart between his fingers, causing the latter to flinch slightly as pain assaulted his nerves one last time. Spade didn't seem to feel it though as he raised his head to the sky above. I'm hot on your heels, friend. He mumbled one last time before his eyes lost their light and his head dropped to his chest limply. Plop. Rex retracted his hand from Spade's chest, causing his body to fall lifelessly to the floor where a pool of blood began to form. He stared at the body silently with a solemn expression on his face. He raised his head to gaze at the setting sun that was shining with an orange glow. The light cast shadows over the ruined landscape, and yet, it was oddly beautiful. There was something welling up within Rex, as if all the pent-up worry and anxiety caused by this threat was trying to leave his body all at once. He clenched his fists into a ball so tightly that his muscles bulged, and a thunderous roar escaped his lips, shaking the ground. But unbeknownst to him, Machamp had also let out a roar that shook the very heavens. As if they were connected, two pillars of light, one red and one black, shone down on the duo. The Asura hidden within Rex came out and hovered there from a moment before a smile appeared on his once emotionless face. He gazed down at the boy in front of him in approval before turning to Machamp that was currently encased in a black cocoon. It seems that it's time for the final awakening, he said, his voice baritone and rough. Merely hearing it caused Mordred to uncontrollably shiver from the depths of his soul. Awaken, martial god, for you have completed the trial set by your race. You have passed the final hurdle and have achieved the full awakening. What you do with this power is up to you to decide. The Asura said while gazing at the black sphere in the sky that was dozens of meters tall. Slowly, golden cracks appeared on its surface. Like glass shattering, it instantly exploded out, followed by a blinding radiance. Machamp emerged, 50 meters tall, a golden body, black feathered wings, a white crown on his head and weird runes running along his body that would make a normal person faint by merely gazing at it. Boom! The ground trembled due to his landing. The Asura didn't seem to care though, as his focus was once again directed at Rex, who was standing there quietly with his eyes closed as if he was in a trance. As for you, you have proven to be worthy of receiving the human legacy. Your bond with your Machamp is evident for everyone to see. You have gained my power. Do with it as you please. I look forward to what you achieve in the future, young one. As his words fell, the Asura was now standing in front of Rex and gently tapped him on the forehead. A small black diamond-like tattoo appeared on his forehead that slowly faded. But a set of black lines emerged from his left eye down his shoulder and directly to the tips of his left hand. It was like an odd tattoo. But they too disappeared after a split moment. By the time Rex had woken up, the Asura was nowhere to be seen. The only thing he saw was an enormous Machamp towering above everything like a god. Next to him, like a loyal guard, Mordred stood. And off to the side was Steelix, who was mumbling something. Rex tried to listen in and soon heard his words. This won't do. No, I can't be outdone. I have to be the biggest. I have to keep up with Machamp. Little friend in my head, I think it's time we increase our size. Steelix mumbled, causing Rex to chuckle slightly. Is that okay with you, Rex? Gaia asked. Yeah, sure, let him do whatever he wants, Rex said with a smile. His words alerted everyone, who instantly reacted to his voice. Rex. You're okay, that's good. I was worried something happened after that red scary dude tapped you on the forehead. Mordred said with relief evident in his tone. Red dude? Rex asked, tilting his head to the side questioningly before sifting through his memories. Gaia helped out and pulled up a recording from Steelix's point of view. After watching the recording and listening to the audio, Rex understood that this was his legacy. But he didn't feel any different. And those tattoos that appeared on his body weren't there anymore. But his train of thought was interrupted as a massive shadow engulfed his body. He raised his head to see a massive palm coming towards him. He didn't resist, and slowly, Machamp dug his fingers in the earth and lifted it up. Rex stood in his same spot with Mordred and Steelix in tow. Soon, Machamp's massive face came into view. A suffocating pressure blew into their faces, almost forcing them to their knees. Machamp quickly pulled it back so as to not injure anyone. Thank you, Rex. It is because of you that I have reached the pinnacle of strength. Machamp's words sounded like thunder as they shook the very air around them. Rex didn't seem to mind and instead smiled slightly before shaking his head. We are far from the pinnacle of strength. I refuse to believe that this infinitely expanding universe doesn't hold a worthy challenge for us. We still have lots of growing to do. But I understand your sentiment. And I couldn't have achieved what I did without you too. Without all of you. He said, throwing all of his Pokeballs out. All of his Pokemon appeared and stared at the massive face before them. They weren't so shocked because the Pokeballs had a surveillance program on them. They could see what was happening in the outside world. Arcanine soon appeared, catching everyone's attention. His jaw was back and so were his two front legs. The tech Rex had used was based on the immense research Gaia had done after hacking and compiling the cutting-edge public and secretly developed tech from each region connected to the internet. After lots of research, they made a massive breakthrough with regenerative capabilities. Something that was unseen, even for this world. And something he would one day introduce for the benefit of everyone else. He wouldn't want to ever see a disabled Pokémon. But that was beside the point. Arcanine was all right, and that was all that mattered right now. "How are you, buddy?" Rex asked with a relieved look on his face. "I've seen better days. But I'm alive, so good," Arcanine said with a laugh. Everyone, a round of applause for Arcanine. "It was thanks to him that we were able to win this fight so fast," Rex announced while looking at the rest of the group. "Not you, Machamp," Rex shouted as he felt the ground move. "Sorry. Machamp said with an apologetic smile. This caused everyone to laugh for a while. "Rex, what about your legacy?" Mordred asked, causing the noise to die down. "Oh, it's pretty simple really. I can merge with Machamp and have a unique form. Apart from that, I can turn into my Asura form, which is incredibly powerful. I can also use the fear I induce on my opponents as sustenance to empower my strength. So overall, it's great," Rex said in a casual manner. "How can you say that casually? That thing made me fear for my life, and you can essentially become him," Mordred said with an exasperated look on his face. "What do you want me to say? That's all there is to it. I'm pretty strong now. Not as strong as you legacy holders, but I should be able to take on other Pokémon." They chatted for a while, which involved Mordred reprimanding Rex for being so relaxed about this. After a while, everyone relaxed more and began to chat freely. Rex took this time to check Machamp's stats. Name: Machamp, the god of martial light Pokémon. All must bow before him. His descent signals the beginning of prosperous times to come. He represents balance and stability. A peacekeeper for this world. Said to have unlimited potential. You must never anger this being unless you wish to die. Legacy status: completed. Typing: fighting, light. Level: 65. Bond: 100%. Height: 50 m. HP: 1300. Attack: 1300. Defense: 1300. SP: ATK: 1300. SP: Definite: 1300. Speed: 900. Ability: God's Wrath. Moves: A. Bullet Punch, Counter, Revenge, Leer, Tackle, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, Fire Punch, Toxic Punch, Light Screen, Close Combat, Dual Chop, Bulk Up, Vital Throw, Ice Fire Fusion, Blast Cannon, Air Pressure Cannon by cooling the air before rapidly heating it while in Ice Fire Fusion state. Crush Grip, Earthquake, Protect, Aura Sphere, Poison Jab, Stone Edge, Indomitable Will, Angel's Shout, Accelerated Delay. Holy fuck those stats! Rex exclaimed in his mind. He almost received a heart attack from seeing those numbers. What did you expect? Not only has Machamp been leveling up since you last checked at level 50, but he's also now got his full legacy. Although nothing has changed, those stats will continue to rise to uncontrollable levels. That is the power of Machamp. He has unlimited potential. He doesn't know hurdles, he doesn't know limits. So these stats are still weak compared to what he will become. A true god. As for the abilities, well, you can guess them already. Indomitable will cause the user to block all attacks directed at them for 10 seconds. It has a 3-minute cooldown between uses. Angel's Shout is simply Demon's Shout but with light attribute. Meaning, it does the opposite. His shout now empowers allies with a 25% increase to all stats for 5 minutes. Has a 10-minute cooldown. Accelerated Delay is the move that slows down time but increases thinking speed. All movement for opponents is decreased by 95% as long as it's active. The user is not influenced by this rule. It has a 20-minute cooldown. I see, that makes sense. So we truly have reached the end of this battle and received the full legacy. On that topic, what would my merging with Machamp look like? Should I do it? Rex asked. No, if you do, you may cause irreparable damage to hundreds of kilometers. This is not something you can use. Only use it when you have no other choice. It has immense consequences for the surrounding environment. So much so that it influences the laws that make up our world. Using it will attract Arceus's attention to us. Unless we are ready to meet him, I suggest you never use this power. Gaia warned in a severe down. Rex was stunned for a moment. He had never heard Gaia be so serious before. And he never had a reason to not trust its words, so he put the whole merging with Machamp issue to the back of his mind. But not before warning Machamp about it. The latter agreed that unless they had no way out they would not use this power. But a sort of excitement grew within them to try out this power. And their hunger for stronger opponents grew. If anyone knew of their desire, they would have died from anger and injustice. How could they still hunger for stronger opponents with the strength they currently wielded? Even Gaia could only sigh in exasperation and helplessness at the antics of the battle duo. So what now? Rex asked. The gym, you still need to complete the last badge. Although I doubt Giovanni will make you fight for it considering the power you now hold. I have also made sure that Elisa and her sisters are safe. Everything is in order. You can go back whenever you wish. Gaia informed. That's good. I still need to get Mewtwo. He's my last partner. I guess I have no choice but to fight Giovanni. Rex mumbled. Why? Gaia asked. Because I'll need to manipulate Mewtwo into escaping, which will subsequently trigger that next sequence of events. I'll crush his party, beat him to a pulp a second time and convince him to join my team. It's honestly annoying, but I can't just take him without showing him my strength. Then I need to let him go off and think to himself. That will prompt him to realize the big issue in his body. Once I beat him again, I'll use that as a bargaining chip to sway him to the darker home. To my side. Rex explained. I understand. It is a feasible option based on the memories you have of the movie and of Mewtwo's personality. He will crave power, and when he sees Machamp he will crave for it even more. I'm impressed. Gaia praised. Thank you. I rarely get to use my brain for anything that isn't battle-related. So it's a good change of pace. Rex focused his attention back on the oversized Machamp that was still holding a small island's worth of land in his hand. Bud, are you able to get smaller? I don't think we can be low-key with your current form. Rex said with a helpless smile. Yeah, that's not a problem. Machamp responded before lowering everyone back to the ground. He then glowed with golden light before the runes on his body began to light up. Slowly, Machamp began to get smaller before finally returning to his 4-meter height. His look was exactly the same as it was before. The only difference was the very subtle golden diamond-shaped tattoos on the back of his palms. Rex nodded contently. Much better. Now, I think we need to go speak to Giovanni about a gym battle, Rex said before turning to Mordred, who was chatting with Arcanine off to the side. Got it? He said while giving Rex a thumbs up. Everyone returned to their pokeballs, including Arcanine, who still needed to be healed a bit more. The next instant a black and green spiral tore a hole through space. A black membrane took shape, which Rex walked through alongside Mordred, who was now back in his shadow. Quickly, the same nauseating sensation overwhelmed Rex's sense. But either because of his newfound strength or because he was getting a bit more used to it, he didn't find it that uncomfortable. He looked around to see the same gym from which he had disappeared. Off to the side, Giovanni was pacing around furiously like his ass was on fire. Rex smiled sinisterly. Well, little backstabbing rat, it seems it's your turn next. Spade's voice echoed in the silent room. Giovanni's steps halted immediately. He sighed slightly and raised his hands in resignation. I have nowhere to hide anymore. It seems I was wrong to hedge my bet on the kid. I was so sure he had what it took to. But that's business for you, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Come on, kill me and be done with it, he said dismissively. A pair of footsteps echoed as they got closer to Giovanni. The latter's left hand was starting to shake slightly, but he quickly stopped it by grabbing it with his right. A sturdy palm was placed on Giovanni's shoulder, making him jump. Only a fool would be unafraid of death. Embrace it. It's due to death that we cherish life so much. Its finite existence brings meaning to our actions and seriousness to the potential consequences. Without it, our relationships become meaningless, and so does everything we hold dear. Rex's voice sounded out in Giovanni's ears. Finally unable to hold it in, the latter dropped to the floor as sweat fell from his forehead. His face was pale as he turned his head to see a smiling Rex standing above him. What astounded him was the changes. Rex's left pupil was crimson red, a tattoo streaked down the neck to his arm that was also red and pulsating as if it was alive. He lowered his head and looked at Rex's shadow, only to see a pair of fiery eyes and a set of white teeth curved into a playful grin. Is that really you, Rex? Giovanni asked in disbelief. Rex chuckled. In the flesh, he responded while raising his arms. The tattoos slowly disappeared alongside Giovanni's fear. You were actually able to win? He asked without thinking. When he realized what he said, he tried to correct himself but was stopped by Rex, who feigned a pained expression. I'm hurt. You thought I would lose. Yet you placed your bets on me. Truly an odd mindset. But I understand. You had no choice, so you chose me over dying. I cannot place fault for your lack of confidence. After all, it's only natural that someone who was previously weak and unknown like myself would have the odds stacked against them, Rex said with a smile. Giovanni nodded before getting up off the floor. At least you understand. But I do hope you can humor me for a moment, as I have a reason beyond saving myself for placing my life in your hands, he said seriously while raising his left arm invitingly. Rex arched a brow and looked towards the couches which Giovanni was pointing at. Sure, why not, Rex said before strolling over and taking a seat. Giovanni sat opposite him, and before Rex could even say anything, a woman came in with a tray that had 2 cups of tea on it. Rex couldn't help but slap his knee and laugh slightly. You catch on quick, Giovanni. Now, tell me what you have in mind, he said between sips of his newly brought beverage. Giovanni leaned forward. placed his tea on the coffee table before speaking. Do you have any interest in starting a business after you become champion? He asked, catching Rex and Gaia off guard. Oh, I think I know where this is going. Gaia commented. Rex nodded. That's right, I'm planning on using my newfound fame to start a company that will have dozens of branches stretching into everything. From movies to manufacturing, nutrition and fashion. Why do you ask? Ha ha ha. I knew you weren't a foolish man. I made the right choice, I truly have. This is perfect. I want to dissolve Team Rocket. But I don't want the people I employed to lose their jobs. They aren't innately bad, they just got dealt a bad hand in life. I picked them up and gave them a way out. Sadly, I never really achieved my goal of becoming a champion and starting my own company. I tried and tried, but it never really worked out. Having no other choice, I settled for the next best option. Using the negative emotions of those who were having it rough, I created Team Rocket. I gained wealth through blackmail and illegal Pokemon trafficking. I'm not going to say I'm a good person. Because after all, good people end up last. Giovanni said seriously. Rex began to laugh out loud, catching Giovanni off guard. Seeing the latter's expression, Rex waved his hand. Don't mind me, I completely understand. Good people truly do end up last. A sentiment I earnestly share. Please, go on. Rex said encouragingly. Giovanni was momentarily surprised before nodding. I don't care for good and evil. Benefits are what interest me. I don't do something that has no benefit for me in it. That includes monetary gain, strength or manpower. Anything that can be of benefit to me I will get. But I also wanted to help those who weren't fortunate enough to live well. Since I know what it's like to live in poverty most of my life until the age of 23 when I got my first job as a janitor at a company. I slowly learned by overhearing conversations for the next 2 years before quitting and becoming a trainer. I realized that I had a way with people. They felt comfortable around me. This allowed me to find new ways of training my Pokemon, to make unfair trades where I ended up with a better Pokemon. But when I got to the league I was destroyed in the finals, prying the golden throne of champion away from me. I tried again and again for another 2 years before eventually giving up. I knew I just wasn't talented enough to bring out the full power of my Pokemon. I realized that the one thing I had a talent for, and a lot of it, was for business. So, I focused on creating my own company. But I realized that I needed ideas, and even if I had them, what would make my product special? How would I make a name for myself? And this all led back to the league and my failure. So, I opted for the dark path. Since I couldn't do it the legit way, I gathered people who were having a hard time and made them into criminals by pushing them to act out on their unhappiness. We started small, but slowly we grew. I corrupted more and more individuals using my way with people and eventually built the small empire I have today. I have eyes and ears everywhere. I have people in the league that tell me things. I know information from other regions. I was slowly becoming the underworld king of Kanto. But I strayed from my initial dream. I always wanted to be famous, to walk into the public and hold a press conference revealing my newest product. To have a big speech at the trainer school motivating the next generation. I wanted to be a household name. But I ended up becoming a person who blackmails someone to get what he wants. Someone who has to do everything possible to hold the little power they have. I cannot return to being someone with nothing, I would rather die. Silence fell on the room as both parties stared into each other's eyes. Giovanni had a solemn expression on his face as his eyes flashed with determination. The determination to do anything necessary to stay on top. "So, what do you want?" Rex asked, breaking the silence. "I want to merge Team Rocket with your up-and-coming business. You would need manpower, and that would take a lot of time to recruit and amass. This way, you get it instantly, and I get to finally live my dream." Rex caressed his chin while looking at Giovanni. "Sure. After all, your words hold some truth. I have already started the hiring process, but I haven't gotten far. I'm sure you have capable people for certain things. They will have a place in my company. But what I wonder, is what you want. What place do you want in my company?" he asked with a smile. Giovanni smiled. "That's obvious. I am the only person qualified to run the company while you're away. After all, being a champion is incredibly demanding. You cannot be there all the time. So, while you're the owner of the company, I'm more of a CEO of sorts. I think I am more than qualified for the job," he said confidently. Rex nodded slightly. "I'm inclined to give this a shot. If it doesn't work, then don't expect to keep your job. As for your lackeys, if they aren't up for the task, they will be fired as well. I want to run a business, not a charity," Rex said sternly. Giovanni smiled widely. "That's enough. I gave them the opportunity for something great, it is on them to grab into it with both hands. But me being fired will never be a possibility." Rex grinned. "I like your confidence. I wouldn't want a timid CEO making decisions for my company. For now, we will keep things the way they are. My partner will give you the blueprint for the company to be. You are to prepare what they give you. Don't stray off of it." Giovanni arched his brow slightly. "Who are they? If you don't mind me asking," he spoke with curiosity. Rex smiled and gazed up at the cameras in the corner of the room. This prompted Giovanni to follow his line of sight as Rex's voice sounded out again. "All you need to know is that they can see everything you do. From when you take a shit to when you sleep. You are as good as naked in their eyes." "Their name?" "Gaia." Giovanni's eyes widened as he turned to Rex, the hacker that scared Spade into full-blown paranoia. He responded. Rex nodded. "That's the one. No one in the world can ever track them down, no matter how hard they try. The reason I'm telling you this is so you know your limits. Gaia is always watching, and by extension, so am I. Do your job well, and your dream will be given to you on a silver platter. Is that clear?" he asked. Giovanni didn't hesitate and extended a hand out with a genuine smile on his face. "Let's show the world our ability. One champion, one businessman, one colossal company." Rex grinned and shook his hand. "To a happy cooperation." "Oh. By the way, what's the name of the company?" Giovanni asked curiously. Rex smiled slightly at the question. "Symphony," he responded. "Symphony? Why that name?" Giovanni asked with an arched brow. Rex smiled slightly. "It has a nice ring to it. Concise and easy to remember. And the thing that will make it memorable is the songs I will add to the advertisements I make. They will be teasers to the new releases my artists create." Giovanni snapped his fingers as a wide smile spread on his face. "Ha ha. So even if it's unrelated, people will still tune into the ads to catch a glimpse of the music that's about to be released. They will inadvertently listen to the ads and might be influenced to buy what's being advertised along with accomplishing their original goal. Marvelous idea, Rex. Two birds, one stone," he said while clapping slightly. Rex could almost see stars shining in his eyes. That's the idea. Glad you are on board. You will get more details pertaining to all the different sectors of the businesses I will be creating in the span of a year. There will be a massive amount of them. We will dominate the market to such a degree where everybody else is forced to close," he said with a devilish grin. Giovanni mimicked him with one of his own. They continued to chat for a little while about vague ideas, with Giovanni even providing some of his own that Rex took quite a liking to. "It seems I'm already benefiting from our newfound partnership. But I'm going to have to change the subject for now. You should have a new experimental Pokémon called Mewtwo currently under mind control, right?" Rex announced. Giovanni's smile never faded, and he simply nodded calmly. "That is indeed the case. I was planning on using that Pokémon to finally win the league and start my own company. But when I found out that monsters like you and Spade were out there, my plan went to shit. And don't get me started on the problems Mewtwo has. He's unstable and unreliable even with the current mind control. I'm just barely able to keep him under my control." "Why?" he asked. "Well, me and Gaia are actually quite interested in him. Would you mind giving him to us?" Rex asked. "I don't mind. I have no further use for him anyway. I doubt I could beat you in this life, to begin with," he said dismissively. Rex was rather stunned, which clearly showed on his face as Giovanni simply waved it off. "You're probably wondering why I would give up something I spent years on and millions of dollars to create so easily, right? Well, it's nothing compared to my returns. The way I see it, if you have an interest in Mewtwo, it means that you have a solution to his problem and that he has enough potential to catch your attention. Both of those things are something I cannot fully achieve with my own power. So, take him as my token of goodwill and investment into our future," he said with a smile. Rex nodded in understanding. Giovanni wouldn't be able to fix the issue with Mewtwo in the short term, and he wasn't good enough as a trainer to unleash his full potential. So, he really didn't have anything to lose. As for money, he would be so rich in the coming years that he could bathe in money and wipe his ass with it. They both knew that, so instead of resisting, he used it as a way of currying favor. A smart tactic. "I will not stand on ceremony then. But I will still need you to fight me using Mewtwo," Rex said. This time, it was Giovanni's turn to be stunned as he stared at Rex with a questioning look. "Why would I do that? There is no point in trying to break a rock with an egg." Rex went on to explain his plan of influencing Mewtwo into discovering who he is and his weaknesses before convincing him to join Rex with the promise of recovery and power that he would now want more than anything. "Who, aren't you manipulative? Didn't think you would go so far," Giovanni said in surprise. "I guess you can look at it this way. The way I see it though, I'm doing Mewtwo a favor. He will be rid of the genetic illness that causes him so much pain. I will also give him the chance to view people and Pokémon in a better light. New perspective on people and Pokémon. What perspective does he currently have that would warrant a change?" Giovanni asked in confusion. "You probably don't realize that your actions of using Mewtwo have had a very negative impact on his state of mind. His perspective on people and Pokémon who serve people is very bad. You also don't know that he has been communicating with the other clones you made." Giovanni's eyes widened at Rex's words. He's been talking to them all this time," he said, half yelling. Rex nodded. Gaia found readings suggesting that psychic energy was being used by him. But the fluctuations were so small that they weren't noticeable. And due to the prolonged state of such fluctuations, they were most likely overlooked and taken as the normal readings. Gaia only realized that this was happening when looking over the footage and focusing on the facial reactions of the clones. They seemed to physically react just when the first spike was recorded. But this doesn't matter. The reason I'm telling you all this is that I want to save Mewtwo from living such a life full of hate. He only knows half the story. He has only ever been exposed to the bad without experiencing the good. I'm not doing this because I need his power. Ha! I have Mordred who can create a meteor capable of wiping Kanto off the face of the earth. But that doesn't mean that Mewtwo doesn't have potential. And I would hate to see it wasted due to his blind rage for a false reality clouded by his turbulent past. I like him and I believe he deserves a chance to live a better life. I hope you can help me out with this. Yeah, I can do that. When do you want to do this? Giovanni nodded in acknowledgement before asking. Rex turned towards the door before returning his gaze to Giovanni. I have someone I need to quickly check up on. I would like to get this over with as soon as possible. So how about now? Giovanni cupped his chin in thought before nodding again a moment later. That can be done. It'll take me 10 minutes to have everything set up. Is that enough? He asked. Rex nodded before saying goodbye and leaving out the door to find Elisa and the twins. Gaia had been monitoring them the entire time, so he knew exactly where they were. He walked into an alleyway before having Mordred teleport him behind the hotel he was staying at. Walking in, he immediately spotted the three ladies he was looking for. They were sitting on the couch in a seemingly heated argument. As Rex got closer, he was able to understand what was going on. "Sis, why did we suddenly have to leave? We were just about to see Rex's fight." "What happened?" Monica asked indignantly. "I don't know myself. All I know is that friend of Rex's told me that someone dangerous was coming for him. And that we might be caught in the middle because of it. So they instructed us to leave," she said truthfully. Monica stopped for a moment to think before smiling confidently. "Ha! I know, Rex was simply too shy and didn't have the confidence to back his previous words. So, he made up that story to get us out before the fight. Smart for a coward. You're too gullible, sis," she finished before shaking her head in disappointment. Before Elisa could respond, a shadow loomed over them. Monica was the first to turn around, but what she saw made her jump in pure fright. In front of her was a 2-meter-tall Mordred, an inch from her face, with a deadly glare in his eye. His golden fire-like eyes were ablaze with fury. "Bad mouth, my friend, again, and no human will protect you." His words sent a chill down the trio's back as his image faded into the shadow of the man behind him. Rex stood there gazing down at Monica with a slight smile on his face. But the latter was petrified in place. She was even shaking slightly as she stared at the empty place where Mordred used to be. "My oh my, such little confidence. I'm sure it might look like that in your eyes, but the thing I lack least is confidence. And the strength to back it up. There really was a dangerous situation, but it has been handled. You might have felt it," he said calmly. Monica snapped out of her stupor at the sound of his voice and tilted her head to the side, trying to process his words. "Felt it?" she mumbled in confusion. Rex nodded. "Yeah, the earthquake that you probably felt at some point in the last hour. That was me. Maybe you saw the pillar of light in the sky?" he asked, his playful smile getting wider as he observed the stupefied expression on the trio's face as realization dawned on them. Elisa was the first to react this time as she shot out of her seat, Her eyes went wide as she pointed a shaky finger at Rex. "TT, that was why you..." she stuttered. Rex nodded, causing Elisa to sigh before coming forward and hugging Rex tightly. "Are you okay?" she asked worriedly. Rex chuckled slightly and embraced her too. "I'm fine. It's all over now. And as you can see, I'm nice and healthy," he said as he parted from her arms to show his perfectly fine body to her. He even did a little spin. "Why you caused all that?" Monica asked in a shaky tone. "Well, since you don't believe I have what it takes to beat the gym leader, I guess we'll have to chalk it up to a strange phenomenon." "What do you say?" he said before ruffling the hair of the twins. Monica's face twisted into a frown as she tried to fix her hair while staring at Rex. "If you're as strong as you say, then you don't mind taking on the gym right now, do you?" she said defiantly. "Ha ha ha, sure, let's go right now. I can show you what I mean anyway." "What about you, Jessica? Do you think along the same lines as your sister?" Rex asked the silent girl who had been observing him the entire time. Jessica took a step forward and squinted slightly. "I think you have what it takes. And I believe your claims. I just hope that my intuition isn't wrong. I would hate to see my big sister disappointed," she said seriously. Rex couldn't help but grin as he stared at the twins. The impulsive, strong-willed one and the level-headed, calm under pressure one. They will make a fine team someday. Seems my own intuition isn't so bent out of shape, he thought to himself in contentment. They make up for their siblings' downside. Alone, they might not be the strongest. Although Jessica is level-headed and calm under pressure, she lacks the initiative to act on her intuition. This can be a bad thing when battling. In essence, she's too timid. On the other hand, Monica has the initiative and a real talent for battling, but she lacked the calmness to stay rational when things don't go her way. Meaning, she's reckless and impulsive. So alone, they have weaknesses, but together, they might actually be an incredibly tough wall to break through. "So, I'm inclined to agree with you on this one." "You made a good call, Rex," Gaia chimed in. "Glad you see it the same way I do. And I already know which legendary bird will go to whom." "Jessica, Articuno. Monica, Moltres." "Exactly, their personalities according to Zapdos match them perfectly. It seems it was meant to be." The battle between Rex the challenger and Giovanni the gym leader will now commence. Per the gym leader's instructions, both of you can only use one Pokémon. The first one to faint is the loser," said a grunt in Team Rocket clothing. But what was interesting was that there was no longer an R on his clothes. Giovanni and Rex both nodded at each other before their faces hardened slightly. Rex pulled out a matte black Pokeball that shone with golden lights through the gaps. Giovanni wasn't aware of who Rex was going to use, but the aura coming off of the Pokeball by itself gave him chills. He steeled his resolve and pressed a button on his watch. The wall behind him subsequently opened up to reveal a Pokémon, standing there, motionless in a suit of heavy armor. Black in color with a mirrored visor. There were wires connected to different parts of his suit that slowly detached, effectively releasing Mewtwo. Rex couldn't help but squint from the smile spreading on his face. His final team member had finally appeared before him. It was only a matter of time before he would complete his Kanto team. But first, he would need to thrash him. He clutched the Pokeball in his hands tightly as he heard Giovanni's voice. "You wanted to fight my creation. Well, here you have it. Bred to be stronger than Mew, he is the ultimate weapon." Rex didn't respond and simply threw his pokeball out. The instant it touched the floor, a blinding light burst out, almost blinding everyone present. Then a cold wind surged in the form of a tornado as a silhouette began to coalesce before everyone's eyes. Within the tornado, a set of golden eyes shone through, followed by runes that seemed to float within the confines of Machamp's outline. A hand burst through the tornado, stopping it in its tracks, revealing his 4-meter body full of muscle and his forearms crossed over his chest, sturdy like the tallest mountain. The Rocket Grunt nodded and waved the flag as his words fell, "Let the battle begin." A horn sounded from the side signaling the beginning, but nobody moved. Machamp, bullet punch. Bang. Before his words even finished, 2 Mewtwo's appeared on the field. One was lodged into the wall behind Giovanni, cracks appearing like spider webs as the gym trembled and dust flew. The other was standing in the original spot, yet it slowly started to fade. An after-image was formed from the sheer speed at which Mewtwo flew out. Machamp didn't seem to have moved, and only a slight flicker was seen over his body before he regained a solid appearance. Giovanni still couldn't react as he stared at the fading Mewtwo with an expressionless face. Elisa's eyes were shaking in their sockets from the shock. She struggled to refrain from jumping out of her seat from the attack. This is the power he spoke of. How can such a monster roam the earth? Monica mumbled dumbly as she shivered intensely from fright. Jessica squinted as a frown appeared on her face. She looked at the unmoving Mewtwo that looked like a pancake pasted onto a wall. The armor was cracked and dented all over. Machamp actually hit him a total of 14 times. Jessica revealed to the shock of the other two. Elisa was the first to recover. "What do you mean?" Jessica nodded in Mewtwo's direction. The number of dents on the armor indicated how many blows he received. "I count 14. All in the span of less than a second." It seems the Pokédex wasn't just hearsay about Machamp's being able to punch more than 500 times a second. A true monster indeed. "This battle is already over," she said slowly and confidently. Yet Elisa saw Jessica's shaking hand that she tried to desperately hide from sight. But to the shock of everyone present, the sound of rocks falling could be heard, forcing everyone to look towards the source, only to see Mewtwo, with half of his visor shattered, glaring at Machamp furiously. A low growl seeped out of his lips. Mewtwo's eyes glowed with a vivid purple hue as psychic energy seeped out of his body, forcing him to float into the air. Mewtwo is in a semi-conscious state. He is not actually awake but acting on instinct. "I suggest you take it easy so as to not damage him more than he already is. I estimate 4 fractured ribs, a broken arm and internal bleeding. Something that he can heal easily with heal pulse, but since he's not fully awake I would refrain from making it worse." Rex nodded in understanding and looked at Machamp. "Wake him up." Bang. Machamp was already in front of Mewtwo before slapping him to the floor, causing a crater to appear. Machamp flickered before appearing on the ground with Mewtwo in his hand. "Awaken," he shouted in a deep tone that echoed in the room. Slowly the sound wave passed through Mewtwo's body, forcing his eyes to regain some clarity. It took a moment, but soon, Mewtwo moved his head slightly as he stared at Machamp. "Where am I?" Mewtwo's voice rang out in Machamp and Rex's minds. "You are currently fighting a losing battle." Machamp responded with a stone-cold face. Mewtwo looked down at the hand clutching his throat in a vice-tight grip. He struggled to breathe as he raised his head again to look at Rex behind him. "You serve a human with your strength?" he asked, anger and disgust evident in his tone. Machamp shook his head. "Not serve, we are equals. Friends, brothers, family. Something you don't quite know the meaning of, correct? Instantly a furious expression surfaced on Mewtwo's face, yet the next second he found himself kissing the floor as pain surged from the left side of his face. Machamp had thrown him back down to the floor as someone does with a wet rag. There, Mewtwo was pressed to the ground. Machamp leaned in slightly. You are in no position to be angry. I am not insulting you, just making an observation. Mewtwo was no longer rational as his anger shot to new heights. His psychic energy surged in waves, seeping between him and Machamp's hand, prying it open to Rex's shock. How is that possible? He asked. It's not, Machamp's just pretending. No need to worry, after all, he needs to escape somehow, right? Rex silently nodded in his head and continued to watch on. You are but a mere puppet brainwashed by these filthy, manipulative and emotionless humans. But I am not your match. We will meet again soon. And on that day, I will beat you and free you from your chains. Mewtwo floated into the air as he spoke, his wounds healing at a visible rate. He glanced at Rex one last time only to see him waving with a playful smile on his face. This puzzled the Pokémon greatly but paid little attention as he then turned to Giovanni before disappearing into the clouds as a sonic boom rang out. That's it, guy. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel for more such videos. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendations. Thanks for watching.